So this is the second time around of me trying to record this. It's hard sometimes having two cats that are the equivalent of needy twin toddlers. But yeah, I was gonna just continue on where I left off, but I was getting interrupted every like 5 minutes and it was starting to just kind of grate on me. So I just kind of decided to start over. But so yeah, hi. This is a video I'm specifically making for friends and family. I'm going to be talking as if I'm just talking out into the open or like I'm talking to a stranger. I'm making this video specifically for a playlist for friends and family, just to kind of have a list of resources to send to people who say that they don't understand, or don't get it, or don't know what language to use or how to behave, or any of the above, all of the above, whatever. So I'm just kind of compiling a list of resources for anybody I know or will know who fit into that category. But as I was making that playlist, and I was looking through and watching videos for it, I found a lot of really good resources for the gender aspect of things, and that really only applies to people of my community and my friends and my partner. Not really myself. I am what would be called cisgender, which means I identify with the gender I was assigned at birth. So I can't speak personally to any sort of gender issues. I can offer explanations that I understand and have been given. I can't tell you like my story as a trans woman, because I'm not one. I can't give you my story as a non-binary person who uses they, them, or neo-pronouns like Zzier. I can't give you those personally. I can give you resources. I can watch through videos and give you information and go over stuff that's accurate to an extent, which I've compiled. I've been doing my best to compile a good list of videos that I hope to open up perspective, but the more and more that kept kind of going on, the more and more I felt it was important for my family to understand my own personal identity as well. And like there's not a lot of videos explaining lesbianism. I mean, it's kind of like pretty straightforward. It's pretty clean cut what a lesbian is. Well, even the strictest definition of women, of lesbians, isn't even what most people even think it is. But for me personally, that label, that identity, means that I am a woman who loves other women. Or, again, it gets into a whole thing, which I'll talk about later on. But I didn't find a lot of videos explaining that. I found a lot of videos about people's own personal, like, coming out stories, or things explaining, like, you know, just stuff very personal to other people, which I get, and they're good resources. And if you feel the need and want to look into those later on to hear stories of other people, which I think is important, then by all means. But just knowing the way everything operates with myself and the people that these videos are kind of intended for, I feel like that's moot point. So instead I'm kind of opting to, and who knows, this might be a huge waste of time. I don't know. I'm gonna pretend that I'm just doing this for myself, just to kind of talk about things. And if it helps the people I intend for it to help gain perspective and gain understanding and respect, that's great. I would really love and appreciate that. But yeah, so I'm just kind of going to be talking about my journey with my identity, my struggles with it, the things that I'm proud of out of it. Hey, a fun video to make for Pride Month, right? But I'm also going to be kind of talking about how things have gotten to this point, where I'm at now, what my thoughts and opinions are, and where I kind of hope for things to go in the future. So yeah, starting at the beginning when I was a wee lass, I think it's very fair to say that anybody who knew me in my family or otherwise knew I wasn't a normal little girl. I wasn't like other girls. I mean, truly by the fact that I was such a tomboy. I mean, it's funny that I didn't end up as a butch, because I was such a tomboy. Everybody called me a tomboy. It's funny that I'm femme now, but relatively femme. But everybody thought I was such a tomboy. I didn't have crushes on boys like other little girls did. I didn't even realize I had crushes on girls, because that wasn't... I don't even want to say it was something that I didn't know was possible, because it's hard to have cognitive thought on that kind of stuff when it's just never been... The thing is, that I have to go into for a second, regarding my quote-unquote generation, because I grew up in a really weird generation, because people who are older than me were around, you know, before phones, internet, blah blah blah, all of that, before gays were a thing, which is such a funny sentiment to me, considering the LGBT community has been around forever, since the start of time. But, well, not since the start of time, but since the start of people. That's a whole separate conversation though. But anyway, it's just very funny to me, how, you know, and like kids nowadays, they have so much representation. They have so much representation. It's incredible. It's amazing. The new She-Ra has plenty of... I think that they have, there's like gender fluid characters. There's gay characters. There's... The protagonist is a gay character. It's incredible. Another animated series for kids, Kipo, they have gay characters. One of the main characters is a gay kid. One of the like side characters that's relatively important in the later seasons is non-binary. They use they them pronouns. It's incredible. The things that are accessible to kids nowadays. It's great. Queer rep is so important to kids because you get to see yourself. You get to see yourself existing. And being important and told stories about. I didn't have that growing up. The closest thing that I had that I could think of off the top of my head, I mean, we had them. We had shapes and forms of them. They weren't ever really as outright. as like Steven Universe or The Legend of Korra or, you know, other kid shows and stuff that I love as an adult. But I mean, like, a lot of the gay characters I grew up with were the butt of the joke. They were jokes. They were treated like crazy people. They were villains, bad guys, or they were killed halfway through the show. The one couple that comes to my mind more than anything else is this couple that was in Sailor Moon, which is my favorite. It was my favorite show as a kid. But in the English translation, they made these characters cousins. They censored them because they were gay. Which, mind you, didn't really make any of us think that they were any less gay. We still thought they were gay. We just thought that they were gay cousins, which is arguably worse. That's way worse. If anything, they were just kind of making an even weirder statement, but you know. They were like, oh, they're so close because they're cousins. They didn't even gal pal them. They made them family, which was creepy and weird. We knew better. We're not stupid. We know better. But that's the kind of rep we had. So all that to say, I didn't really have, a point of reference. I didn't have a point of reference for myself when I was young. And a lot of people didn't. A lot of people don't now still. Representation's not perfect. People could really benefit from having even more of it. I'm gonna talk about that later on. I didn't mean to rant about that too much right now, but here we are. So yeah, to go back to my own personal stuff, I didn't have crushes on all the little boys. I had one crush on one little boy when I was like 5. That was it. It wasn't even serious. It lasted like a little bit. I don't even barely remember it. I actually completely forgot about it until very recently. Otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it in this video because I just completely forgot it was a thing. But yeah, I just didn't have crushes on all these boys because one, kind of hard to have crushes on people who are just actively bullying you. I thought it was really weird that all the other little girls had crushes on all these bullies, all these little boys who would like bully them and other people. I didn't really vibe with that. I didn't really dig that. I also really didn't dig people telling us little girls that, oh, he's teasing you and making fun of you and attacking you and bullying you because he likes you. I'm like, that sucks and is harmful in the long run. Thanks, grown-ups. But yeah, so I only really had like 3 vocal crushes ever. One being that little boy, the other being a little boy in middle school, and one being my best friend in high school. Between those, I probably had dozens of crushes that I didn't realize were crushes. Largely on little girls. There were mostly in elementary school. I had like a couple girls that like, you know, this was like spread out, but I had a couple girls that like I just wanted to be friends with so bad. So bad I wanted them to like me and to be my friend. And like to the point where I didn't even know, like people would be like, why do you want her to be your friend so bad? Like, just, she doesn't want to be your friend, be friends with someone else. And I'd be like, I really want to be your friend. Yeah, no. No, I was probably like, I just really wanted like their attention and their approval, I guess. I don't know. Again, it wasn't like cognitive thought. I wasn't like actively being like, yeah, I want this from them. I was like, I want to be their friend. But yeah, so you don't really think too much about that like when you're little. I mean, some people do. Some people think about it more, but I mainly only ever had the thought of like I just like who I like. Like I never had like a weird like I didn't ever have a weird, I don't want to say weird, I never had a suppression of me liking girls. I didn't know that was a thing that you could do more accurately. I didn't know that was just like a thing. But you know, I never had like a moment of like, ah, I like girls and boys. I like girls also. It was like, oh yeah, no, I just like whoever. And that's kind of how I always used to explain it. But, you know, especially considering I didn't come across the term bisexual until I was like late middle school, early high school. Bisexual meaning that you are attracted to both men and women. That is what being bi means. So I always had the feeling that I was like something along those lines from a very young age. Again, I had that huge crush on this kid in middle school who was a boy, and in high school I was head over heels for one of my best friends who identified at the time identified as female, although I kind of knew that they were struggling with gender identity for a minute before other stuff ended up happening. But regardless of that, they I was head over heels for them. It feels funny talking about that now that I'm almost 24, and at the time I was like 14, 15. Not to invalidate, like, I absolutely am not invalidating my feelings on the matter, but it's just kind of funny looking back on it, that was such like a thing that took years getting over. But because it wasn't really a crush at that point, but anyway, obviously nothing happened, nothing was reciprocated, and again, it took me a while to get over, but I got over it. It happened. But yeah, I just lived my life for the majority of it at the time, up until the age of 18, that I was bi. I was working under that label. I was living under that identity. I always knew that my attraction to men was nowhere near my attraction to women. I always knew that. I always knew that I definitely preferred girls to guys, way more. I've always just kind of, which it changes person to person anyway, for people who are bisexual. Like, it's not just like you're not half gay, you're not whatever, however that works. But I'm not here to talk about purely bisexual identity today. But anyway, when I used that label, I still faced a lot of, because I am going to be talking about prejudice I face and have faced, because unfortunately I've been told by a lot of friends and family, and even just strangers, that I'm not discriminated against for my identity or for my preferences, for my lifestyle, if you will. I'll talk about why I hate those terms also, but I'm told often, like, no, like, you have it so easy. Gay people nowadays, you have it so easy. You don't face any sort of prejudice or hate or anything. Which is, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be frank, that's such BS. That is such BS. The fact that people even would sit there and tell me that to my face is just a complete and utter show of a lack of understanding or perspective, I guess. That's what it feels to me. And I'm gonna say this here and now, that none of this is meant to be insulting to anybody in any way or form. So if this is taken personally, or you feel hurt about something I say here, I mean, I'm just expressing my feelings on matters and how a lot of things show in my perspective. So yeah, if you unfortunately take offense from anything I say, I apologize. I doubt any of what I say here is going to be stuff that I haven't already in some way or form explained or expressed to those who this is intended for. Just as like a umbrella thing. But yeah, so just because, again, this video is to give perspective, it's to give understanding, it's to communicate without, I mean, unfortunately, I have to say it like this, I am really just speaking in this format to speak freely, speak my mind, and not experience interruption, or having it be a back and forth, having it be a debate, a forum, a discussion. This is an explanation. That's it. That's just, this is my story. This isn't somebody else's story. This is mine. So anyway, back to, you're gonna notice I get sidetracked a lot. You're gonna get that a lot here, especially since I'm just being left uninterrupted. If anything, this is probably the most open and honest I'm gonna be about all of the, like, anything ever. But yeah, so, you know, when you identify as bi, you get a lot of prejudice from both sides, from cisgendered heterosexual people and as well as your members of your own community. Unfortunately, it does happen where certain identities, there are people, unfortunately, within the community who are exclusionists and accuse bi people of being too straight, and straight people accuse bi people of being too gay. They also accuse bisexual people of being immediately unfaithful, which is so disturbed, I think, that you think that you know everything about a person's character based on who they fall in love with is insane to me. But I was told that a lot while I identified with that label, which, as somebody who's I'm very one and done. I don't like dating around. I hate cheaters. I think cheating is the worst thing that you could possibly ever do to another person in a relationship. I don't think there's any second chances for somebody who cheats. And I've always had that opinion. So for people to tell me, oh, I wouldn't trust a relationship with you, you're a cheater, it's really insulting. I especially get super insulted on behalf of those people as well. I think that's such a cruel thing to tell someone. And then, like, for any identity, you're told, oh, it's just a phase. You're told being bi is a stepping stone, which I was very worried about perpetuating. I'll talk about that as well. But, well, no, I'll just talk about it right now because it's no secret that I'm a lesbian. So it's no secret as to where this story goes. But I was very worried once I made the realization and switched from identifying or labeling myself as bi to using the term lesbian for myself. I was very worried about perpetuating that, straight women, straight women go from being bi to being gay, which is dumb and not how it works, or gay women go from being bi to being straight. Like, that's not how it works. It's not a stepping stone, it's not a pathway. I'm only using women specifically as an example because that's what I was worried about. That's what I was worried about contributing to. But yeah, I mean, you know, you're told you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, it's just a phase. Every identity and label is told that, like, just across the board. Pardon me. But, you know, it was also kind of weird because some people kind of acted more like they accepted me when I was bi, which was weird. They kind of just came to terms with it more and accepted it more. I think because it was more likely for me to end up in a normal relationship. I hate to call it that. I hate to use those words for it, but I was more likely to end up in a relationship that society conditions us to believe is the only one that there can be. Because a lot of bisexual people do end up dating people who are of the opposite gender as they are. A lot of bi women date men, and a lot of bi men date women. Mainly just because the chances of finding, you know, people of the same gender, who not only fit within, like, your dating pool in terms of just being the same gender and having a preference that would lead them to dating you. But then you have to take into account if you're even compatible. You don't just date when you're queer. I mean, some people do. Some people do just date any other queer who fits within their attraction category, and that's close to them. Like, oh, we're the only two queers in this class. That's how that goes. And some people are like that. It usually doesn't work out. Because if you just dated the first person who you had anything even a little bit in common with, if you just immediately went into a relationship with them, it probably wouldn't work out. But so you have to take into consideration, like, oh, could we even be attracted to each other? And then from that point, which is already so slim, so narrow, but then you have to think about your personalities. Are those compatible? Do you have similar viewpoints? Do you get along? Do you have similar goals? Do you have similar lifestyles? Do you... all of those things. So just when finding somebody of the same sex that could be attracted to you, that you're attracted to, is already so slim, and having each of those following categories go from slim to slim to slim to slimmer, it's obviously more likely for people to end up in a societally normal, conventional relationship. Which also leads a lot of those people who identify that way as being told that they're fakes, that they're fake gays. So those are all things that I have personally experienced, without even being bi at the end, I guess. It didn't make me any straighter, I'll tell you that. Facing that prejudice and hearing those comments all the time didn't encourage me to... I didn't even change my mind based on any of those things. I came to a different realization based on my own internal factors and matters. External input doesn't... Unsolicited external input does not do anything other than make a person depressed. And make a person... You don't question if you are better off. I mean, you question if you're valid for existing in a way that's truthful to yourself. And if that's not hateful, and if that's not me facing prejudice, I don't know what is. To be made to hate myself and doubt myself just for liking certain people. It's insane. But even people who mean well hurt you. Even people who love you hurt you when you're different. When there's no one else like you, you get hurt. So I lived my life thinking that that was an accurate label, until it all kind of came to a head when I met a guy through a mutual friend of mine. Through a friend of mine. we shared a friend. And like I was super into him, I thought. You know, it was one of those things where you meet somebody new and you just immediately click. And the society has taught me that when that happens, that means that you date that person. That means that you're into that person. There's no such thing as platonic soulmates. You just gotta date that person. So I did instigate trying out a relationship, and unfortunately, I immediately grew very, very uncomfortable. Very. So yeah, because he wanted to immediately start calling himself my boyfriend and called me his girlfriend. More specifically, he would call me his girlfriend and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's weird, but okay. And then I never really went around referring to him as my boyfriend. Other people did and he did, and anytime that happened, I don't know how else to describe it other than just feeling immense unease and discomfort. And I couldn't understand why. I couldn't understand why, especially because I instigated it. I didn't understand how I went from being so attracted to this guy and wanting to spend so much time with him and be around him all the time to hating my life. So I didn't rush into any decisions or anything. I told him I wanted to take things slow, which I did anyway. But because I still didn't really know him that well. I'd only known him for like a few months before we started dating. Which it really wasn't. But I thought long about what this all meant for me and for whatever that relationship was or was supposed to be. And I came to the conclusion, the realization, that no, I don't want anything to do with men when it comes to my relationships. I don't want to sleep with men. I don't want to be romantic with them. I'm great having male friends. I love male friendships that I built with just classmates and coworkers, and like some of the people I've gotten along with best at my workplaces have been the guys, more than the girls. Again, I was a very tomboyish girl when I was little. We all know this, so I have a lot of similar interests. I liked a lot of the boy things, the things that were exclusively allowed for boys. I liked video games. I liked, I don't know, I liked what they liked. So I got along with them really well. Which still to an extent holds true. It's funny. So, and I have to explain, I didn't choose to be a lesbian. That's not what this is. Like I said, I worded it specifically that I came to a realization. What I did afterwards was a choice. I chose not to subject myself to staying in a relationship with him, just to save his feelings. I wasn't gonna suppress myself and lie to myself. Because yeah, like everybody's external feelings aside, you can't do that to yourself. You can't trap yourself and expect you can't. I couldn't be that cruel to myself. So I decided to end things and explained it to him. He was understandably upset. Not that I came to the realization that I did, but that, you know, he didn't have a girlfriend anymore. Especially when, you know, it seemed like we liked each other so much, and I did really like him as a friend. That was a problem with me being bi, is that I didn't really tend to understand the difference between platonic or romantic relationships. I just apparently really wanted a good friend. It did ruin the friendship, unfortunately. You know, but whatever, that's just how the dice rolled, I guess. But it was both very freeing, and I felt a lot more comfortable and a lot more at home with myself after I came to understand myself better. And then it shifted as well, because it was very freeing, but it didn't get easier, because now I got to experience a different set of prejudice. I got to experience a new set of stereotypes and a new set of expectations, and disappointment and reactions, from, I mean, I'd already, like, you know, you obviously already, like, hear this stuff being in the LGBT community, even with identities that you don't use, you hear about things that other people deal with and go through. And so I knew, like, a lot of this, and I would still get upset for these people, that I, you know, that I would, like, hear this about. I'd be like, I mean, even now I get upset when I hear people insulting or speaking about identities that I don't even have and that I'm never going to have. Like, I'm never going to be asexual, but when I hear people discriminating against them for that, I get very upset and defensive for those people. Like, my heart hurts for them. So when I identified as bi and I heard what lesbian women would go through, and what they would hear, my heart hurt for them. And then I was one. I am one. And my heart hurts for, you know, bisexual people and bisexual women that have to hear the same shit that I had to hear. Pardon my language. It is a BS though. It's all just a load of BS that we have to hear from everybody every day, all the time. From strangers, from coworkers, from friends, family, people who either mean it in a mean way, or people who even don't, and just either don't know better or think they know better. You just can't escape the hurt, which is caused by not understanding and not knowing. I consider myself very lucky. Well, maybe not lucky, because a lot of it was intentional. I do surround myself with a lot of people from my community. I don't feel like that requires any explanation for why that would be. Of course, you want to be with people who are similar to you and understand your experiences. And I've even, within the past few years, expanded that friend group into even more identities. And I didn't mean to say that like I'm starting a collection, but I've been talking to like way more people about like different kinds of experiences. Like a lot of my newer friends are all over the place on the gender spectrum. There's different like sexual attractions, romantic attractions, gender identity, which are not related. None of those are even related to each other. They're all separate, which is crazy. Interesting and good kind of crazy, but like I do understand how and it can be and is a lot to certain people. I do get that. But I've been spending a lot of time just sitting and listening. Not listening with the intention of responding, but just listening and learning from people who are not like myself, which is so important to everyone. I think everybody should take time out of their life to learn about people that are not like them, because bad things happen when too many people don't have that mentality. I think personally, unfortunately for me, there is a one bad side. I'd say that there's probably a couple, but one of the negatives of having mostly queer friends is that it kind of creates a bubble of acceptance, where you're in that bubble and you're interacting with those people and you're spending your time on platforms and social medias that are inclusive and are accepting and are encouraging and all of the above. Once you leave that circle and once you leave that bubble and you step back into the real world, I tend to forget sometimes how prejudiced people are until I interact with them. I tend to forget how hateful some people are, how actively they condemn people like me for existing in a way that doesn't even affect them. It doesn't have any impact on anybody else, but just the fact that I exist makes people seethe and disgusts them. And sometimes, you forget that until you talk to other people who want to fetishize you or misunderstand you or tell you that they know what you're about or actively tell you that they don't know what you're about. They ask you invasive questions that are none of their business. They ask you, like, I mean, it's even worse for trans people, but even I get asked about how my genitalia works, which is so no one's business. I'm usually a lot more open and comfortable with discussing this kind of stuff than other people are, which is weird. But there's also the fact that I pass as a straight girl because I'm not butch. I don't have the buzz cuts. I'm not masculine. I don't embrace my more masculine side like butch women do. Which I will say right here, right now, butch women don't want to be men. That defeats the whole point. So that needs to stop. Butch women, butch people, they are butch. They don't want to be men. Otherwise, they just say that they're men. Butch women are not trans men. I have to reiterate that. But going back to it, I don't. There's not a way to look gay. There's stereotypes on how to look gay. I don't look like a stereotype. I don't. And people who do, that's their choice. So a lot of them do it on purpose. But I'm not. I don't. And so a lot of people, you'd be surprised what people say about people who are like you when they don't realize that you are one. And even when they do realize you are, and they have things to say about other people who are like you and share qualities with you, I mean, it's kind of like that thing of like, you know, parents talking about negative qualities of themselves that they share with their children, and their children learning to hate those parts of themselves. When I hear people talking about lesbians and other LGBT folk and how they really think about them, or just, again, upsetting, even with good intentions, if they just have like an upsetting or ignorant comments to make, even if it's not about me directly to me, it hurts, because that's what they're secretly thinking about me. I hope I communicated that in a way that made sense, but, you know, I also can't be an exception. Like, I don't know, it doesn't, and I don't know, I'll talk more on that a little bit, but to go back to like just people, you know, even the people who know I'm gay, like some people like make jokes and they land and they're funny, but a lot of people do and they don't land, they're not funny. I've been called names that, like, there's also a difference between other gay people joking around with me about being gay, and then there's straight people joking with me about being gay. There's a difference between my gay friends being like, oh, you're such a lesbian, versus a straight person calling me a carpet muncher, just to use an example. It's different than being called slurs and being called a lesbo and stuff like that. Having people like doubt and assume things about your relationships, and also to go back to like overhearing things when I hear people call other LGBT folks by slurs or by harmful names, or just saying the most ignorant things that they possibly could about them. It's upsetting. It hurts me both directly and indirectly to know that those people actually think those things about people who are like me. I'm told commonly that straight people think that gays are taking it too far. That we're somehow pushing the line past a certain point, which I often find those discussions and arguments that are made when I'm talking, I'll be talking about how happy I am to have queer rep, like I was talking about earlier, and I'll have people who then tell me we're pushing it down people's throats, we're shoving it in their face, we're being too loud and too proud, too much. How dare you? Like, how dare those people say that? Because as somebody, I didn't have any of that. I didn't get to have any of that at all. I didn't get to have it be in our face at all. It wasn't anywhere near me. Also, I'm sorry if you think that having queer rep is too much and that it's down your throat or in your face, it's not for you. It's not. Just like all those straight characters, all those cisgendered characters, they weren't for me. The cis straight characters weren't for us. They were for people who were more socially accepted. We didn't identify with those, and now that we get people who we identify with, we're told that we're too happy about it. It's insulting. It's rude. It's a clear lack of understanding of queer history, which is, and I can't even blame people for not having that because it is suppressed. It's not talked about. We're not taught queer history in school, but it needs to be. These discussions need to happen. We need to be more seen. Having representation makes us seen. You can't ignore us. People cannot ignore us anymore. We can't just be brushed under the rug anymore and told that we don't exist, because that's not helping anybody. That's not helping a single darn person at this point. It's really not. And then, you know, there's discussions that people like to bring up that aren't even what is being talked about in the moment. Like me talking about wanting queer rep, that somehow tumbles into accusing gay people of being pedophiles and being like forcing being queer on our children, or being anything on anybody else. One, that's a distraction from the real discussion. That's a diversion from the real fact at hand, first and foremost. Second of all, it's just ignorant. Because first of all, every gay person I've ever met hates pedophiles, so the fact that people think that those are included in our community, we get very upset about that. That's not okay in any capacity. Also, it's kind of hypocritical, isn't it? For straight people to say that gay parents are forcing it on their children. That we're forcing acceptance on our children. That we're making them gay by giving the option to be who they want, when a lot of straight parents are the ones who are telling their children that they just want them to be normal, that they'd rather them live someone else's truth than their own. That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me, and I'm told that all the time. I remember a few years back, one of the best things that ever happened for this community, well, at least for this community in America, because this isn't over everywhere else. But back in 2015, gay marriage was legalized in the United States of America. I remember being so overjoyed. Because it wasn't an option. It wasn't allowed. We weren't allowed to love who we wanted to love, and it was so sad. I probably should have realized I was a lesbian earlier on, but the fact that you could only marry who you wanted to marry in like a handful of different states, and everyone else said that you weren't allowed to, was devastating. To be told that you're not allowed to have that happiness. To be told that you're ruining marriage for other people just by having a ceremony that literally doesn't affect anybody else but you and your spouse. The thought that I wouldn't be allowed to have a wife someday broke my heart. And when that was legalized, I know I didn't do anything to cause this. I know I didn't help. 2015? That was 6 years ago. I was not able to, I wouldn't have been able to do anything anyway, but I just remembered it was a victory for all of us. We all just felt so on top of the world. And we were allowed to have that for like a day before people started telling us to sit down and shut up again. Like, oh yeah, you won. You won. Good for you, you won. It's over. You did it. Good job. Like, we're not allowed to celebrate anything for us. The fact that we have a Pride Month, everybody wants to immediately be like, where's my straight Pride Month? Where's my white Pride Month? You existing is your pride. You're never oppressed for being straight by society. You do not get called slurs for being a straight person. You do not get called slurs I don't get called trans-related slurs because I'm cis, and I understand that that's a privilege of mine. Like, and also, I mean, Pride Month, that's just pride for the entire LGBT community. We're all just thrown into a shoebox of like hundreds of different identities and just told, okay, you get a month to be proud. Other than that, you're not allowed to be gay. Outwardly, openly. As long as corporations can profit and straight people can run pride parades, you're allowed to be gay. It's tough. It is tough, even with all of the things that have gone really well for this community. You know, like, I've been getting a lot recently of people saying, oh, well, you think it's hard nowadays, like, gosh, gay people couldn't even blah 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 back in the day. I get that. I understand that. I respect that. Those people who were outwardly gay or trans or the first Pride was a riot. The Stonewall riots sparked it all. A group of Black trans women paved the way for me to exist outwardly. I have so much respect for past queers who didn't even get to see a future, didn't even get to see the present that they helped to build. Especially people from the HIV epidemic, pandemic, whatever it was, that whole thing that wiped out so many of our community. It's a huge reason why we don't see a lot of elder queer people. Which is super important, being able to see older lesbians, older trans folk. Just, it's indescribable. But I mean, I'm told that my experiences are nothing just because I haven't been beaten to death for being gay. Physically. I can't tell you how emotionally beaten to death I felt about it. Just because people aren't casting physical stones doesn't mean that their words aren't casting stones in and of themselves. I mean, and the thing is I still don't feel safe outing myself to everyone. You don't just get to come out once and have that be a thing everybody knows all the time. I still have people who actively assume I'm straight, talk to me about dating guys or having a husband, being a mom, and my normal straight little family. You know, I get hit on by guys all the time, which is super uncomfortable. I don't feel comfortable telling certain guys that I reject that the reason I'm rejecting them is because I'm gay. Because that can quickly turn into a hate crime. Many people in my community have, especially women, just because battery against women is a real issue, because a lot of guys can't handle rejection. But, you know, a lot of gay women have been murdered. A lot of gay women and their partners have been murdered because one of them didn't want to be with a man. It happens. I don't feel safe about that. I don't feel safe outing myself to everyone, and even if it's not a matter of like safety, sometimes I just don't want to get into it. If I know a person's going to have terrible opinions on who I am and will want to fight me and argue with me, I'm not going to go out of my way to express that I'm a homosexual to them. I'm not going to explain that. I mean, I refuse to be in the closet. I'm not in denial about myself. I'm not secretive about, it's not a matter of being secretive, it's a matter of sometimes I don't feel safe, and that's sad. And we're not in a magic safe society where everybody loves and accepts gay people. The fact that I'm making this video right here and right now for friends and family of mine should be more than enough to explain that. The fact that I feel like this is kind of necessary should show you that the society is not kind to people like me, to people like my friends. And that's sad. Can't help but be sad about it. Sometimes. That, you know, and I understand I'm a lot luckier than a lot of other gay kids. A lot of gay and trans people get kicked out of their homes, completely disowned and rejected by their families, just for living their truth and being who they are. And yeah, I'm very, very privileged and lucky that I wasn't kicked out for being gay, but come on, that's the bare minimum, isn't it? To tell somebody that, sure, I feel grateful and I feel lucky, but to tell somebody that they're lucky that they didn't get kicked out for being who they are, that's the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum of respect. That's the bare minimum of acceptance. That doesn't make a person feel loved and accepted, that makes them feel tolerated. Tolerance is not acceptance, is not support, is not love. So yeah, I am luckier than a lot of people in my community. And I don't mean to take that, I don't say this lightly at all. I don't say this lightly at all. I don't mean to take that with any amount of lack of gratitude. I don't. I could have had it a lot worse. But just because you could have had it a lot worse doesn't mean that you still can't wish things were better. Because even people who are well-meaning hurt you. Even people who love you hurt you. Just because you love somebody doesn't mean you understand them. And when you don't understand somebody and you try to love them the way that they don't want to be or can't be loved, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. Being an unmovable force doesn't work in a relationship of any kind. Not in a friendship, not in a romantic relationship, siblings, parents, parent-child. It just doesn't work. If there's no room for growth, because people and times change. There's no point in getting stuck. There really isn't. And a lot of people are stuck. A lot of people are stuck in that time where gay people weren't allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to exist, and a lot of people are still stuck there. Which often leads me to not feeling heard. I don't feel listened to. I don't feel understood. I feel talked over a lot. And I'm sorry, again, I don't mean any of this with a single ounce of disrespect. But when it comes to the LGBT community, and if you're not from my community, and you haven't done any research or anything, or any listening, or any talking to people, I know more than you. I just do. There's no point in talking over me about this stuff. I know more than you when it comes to the research behind it, because it's not even just that, ooh, I know more than you because I'm gay. I know more about being gay than you because I'm gay. That's not how this works. I know more about being gay than you because I care. And I put in time and research and energy into learning and understanding people who are like me, who aren't like you, and people who are not like me, who aren't like you. And this isn't me sitting here like, oh, I'm so much smarter than you. No, not at all. Not at all. This has nothing to do with intelligence. This has nothing to do with intelligence. Maybe emotional intelligence, perhaps, maybe empathy. Maybe, I don't know. But it has nothing to do with anybody's lack of ability to understand. I've just put in a lot of time because I want to understand. And if it's a thing that you want to understand that you don't understand, you make an effort to learn things that will help you get it. And it does take time. It fully does. My friend Parker uses Z-Zir pronouns. Those are called neo-pronouns. They are new pronouns that didn't exist before. Which, they, them, is not a neo-pronoun, because singular they, them has been used for centuries. Check William Shakespeare, he was using the singular they, them for a long time, honey. But yeah, there are neo-pronouns, and they are difficult. I fully did not know about them or understand them. You know what I did? I just got simple elementary school grammar worksheets and filled those in the blank, looked up a couple like how to use blank in a sentence, how to grammatically use these neo-pronouns. And I've been using them ever since. I've been using them for like 2 years now, to refer to my friend Parker. I've been using they, them pronouns for a long time, even before I met my specific, close to me, non-binary friends. It gets easier with time, but you have to practice. You have to use them. It gets easier, it does. Understanding all of this stuff gets easier with time if you're taking the time. If you're making the effort, it gets easier. If you're not, then it's never going to be. If you aren't trying to understand, you're never going to understand. That's not me being cruel or me poking at anything. That's just me stating a blatant and obvious fact. But regardless of all of that, regardless of like anything to do with anybody else, let's just bring it back to me here. Which is so weird because I feel like I shouldn't be allowed to just talk about myself like this for a long time. But this is an important matter, and I am talking about myself as well. But even regardless of like my community, my friends, we'll even ignore things about my partner for right now. When it comes to my own identity, I feel disrespected by so many people because they don't get it. They tell me I'm wrong, that it is sinful for me to love myself. for being the way that I am. And I'm not a religious person. I have like 2 comments to make, either religiously or politically, in this video. Even though I know this video is already getting really long, and I doubt anybody's gonna watch through the whole thing. But the thing is I don't really care if people understand. I don't care if you get it. I really don't. I'd love it. I'd love it if that was how it worked. I'd love if everybody could understand and empathize and sympathize and wrap their minds around it. I would love that so much. But it's not necessary. It's not. You know what is necessary is respect. Basic human decency. Which is offered to even people that you don't like. I have so many people that I can't stand that I would never deny using their proper pronouns or respecting their identity or their anatomy or their bodily autonomy or any of that. I'm not saying you have to be nice to us or kind to us or understanding or accepting or join pride parades or be an ally. The very least you can do to anybody is to just... It's the very basic, it's the very bare minimum that you can do to respect a person. It really is. It might take some effort to learn new concepts, but I think it's worth it. I think respecting other people is worth it. I'm not asking people to alter their beliefs or anything. I'm not asking people to change their political stance, or... Which, I really think that you should take a step back and think it over if your political stance really is affected by LGBT folk. I really do think that that should be something that you evaluate within yourself, if that's what you think. If you feel like your political or religious beliefs are challenged by people who don't affect you in the slightest, I think you need to take a step back and think about that. I really do. If you stand in the way of human rights and human progress, I don't understand where you stand. I don't understand what you're trying to make better. Or what you are encouraging people to make better, if it's not for the sake of people. I don't know. I just have a lot of really weird, not really weird, I just have a lot of thoughts and reservations about that sort of stuff, but, the fact of the matter is that people's identities, and their truth, which people's pronouns are the very bare minimum, people's names and people's pronouns are the very bare minimum of how you acknowledge a person. They shouldn't just be acknowledged, and they shouldn't just be accepted because you care about that person. I mean, they absolutely should be. If you respect that person, if you care about that person, they absolutely should be. But that shouldn't be the leading reason. I have plenty of people that I don't love anymore and that I don't respect very much, that I wouldn't dare to misgender them. And even if I accidentally were to misgender somebody, I say, oh, I don't even say sorry at this point. I just correct myself and move on. That's all you really need to do. If you make a harmful comment and I say towards me, and I say, hey, that's not that great. That's not great. And you get defensive, like I'm attacking you, that's not great either. People, I don't know how to explain this other than, I think for some people it's a hard concept to grasp that people exist outside of you, especially those who are different. People who exist outside of you become a nameless monolith. And they're just somebody else. But even though they're somebody else, they're not an NPC. They're not just random side characters. They're their own people leading lives, and they have people that they care about and that they love and who love and care about them. Just like me, I'm just like you. You're somebody else to them. Don't you deserve respect? I think you deserve respect, and I think I deserve respect. I think others deserve respect. You don't get to respect the identity of somebody just because you love them. You respect the identity of somebody because they're a human being. Now, again, I know this is a long video, and I'm very sorry about that. I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say. I have more to say than what I'm even saying right now, but that would be a very long video. But I have a lot to say. I've been told by a lot of people recently in my life that I'm asking them to suddenly understand a lot. I get that to an extent. I get that. I do get that a lot of this is new for those people specifically, not in general, because like I said, LGBT stuff has been a thing forever. I mean, if you think about it, let's just a quick little sidebar here. The Greek poet Sappho, who lived on the island of Lesbos, wrote Sapphic, which means women who love women. She wrote Sapphic poetry hundreds of years ago. Hundreds of years ago. That's not new. Virginia Woolf isn't new. Leonardo da Vinci isn't new. Oh, he was so gay, honey. He was so gay. A lot of those artists were. A lot of people in history have been gay or queer or trans or however you want to put it. That we've just been silenced and repressed, or have had historians call our relationships gal pals or a very close friend. We've just been censored forever. We're not new. But I get it. I do get it. It's new to you. It's new to a lot of people as the concept, because it has been censored. It hasn't been talked about. Which is why I think, again, representation is so utterly important. But, you know, and like I said before, like the kinds of representation you get dwindle more and more and more. Like gay men. Gay men are probably the most represented. Gay, cis, white men are the most discussed and talked about and represented. Then you move on to like gay men of color. Then you move on to like gay and or trans men of color. Then you move on to disabled gay people, and boom, that's already suddenly so niche. It's niche. People like that exist. People like that do exist. And they deserve to be seen. And they deserve to be heard. And then you move on to gay women, who are less than any of that. Maybe more so than some of the later categories of gay men. But then, again, you follow that line of, that same exact line. And then there's even less representation. And people like that exist. And deserve to be seen and heard. Trans people less than that, but non-binary people less than that. Asexual people, bisexual people, more than any of that. So yeah, no, I get that it's new. I get that you don't get it. I do genuinely understand that. I hope I've been doing nothing but reiterating that for, I feel like those words have been leaving my mouth more than anything else for the past I mean, forever, but probably a lot within the last year. And I'm not going to sit here on a high horse about that. I know I might have sounded like I was earlier when I said, ooh, I know more than you. But I didn't at one point. I did not know all of the things that I know about queer history and queer identities and the facts behind it. Our society is largely heteronormative, and it's not inclusive in its language representation or the gender roles that we're given or the romantic roles we're given. From a very... the fact that we have gender reveals, like the second the doctor says to a set of parents, it's a this, that child is then, without even being born yet, that child suddenly has a role to fit. They have a part to play. They have an assigned color, they have an assigned personality, they have expectations. I didn't match so many of the expectations of me. I'm not trans. I am a cis woman, but I describe myself as cis to the left because I don't really identify with a lot of the binary that we're given. The male, female, dunzo, and the roles that those play. I was never gonna be some man's housewife who sat around wearing aprons and dresses and didn't have my own job. I was never just gonna stay at home with the kids and take everything sitting down. I just wasn't gonna do that. I wasn't girly. If anything, I've only just recently become fairly girly, and even to that point, I'm probably never gonna get super into makeup or anything. I'm already seen as like a failure of a woman by societal standards. The fact that I'm almost 24 and I'm not even settled down married with one kid yet. So yeah, I don't really even fit in and conform to being a normal cisgendered woman that doesn't have an experience of questioning their gender or discussing it or having some sort of reflection on it. But anyway, all that to say that all of this has affected me, and there's a lot of things that you have to unlearn that society forces on you. I had to unlearn my hatred towards femininity because I wasn't feminine enough. I wasn't cute enough, I wasn't pretty enough. So I hated anything girly because I wasn't a girl by society's standards. I had to unlearn that hatred. I had to unlearn my own assumptions about other groups of LGBT people. Even my own identity, I had to unlearn a lot of things about. I went around, like when I was a teenager, talking mad game like I knew what I was on about, but I didn't. Of course I didn't. I've had to, especially since meeting a lot of my gender non-conforming, non-binary, trans friends, I've had to get rid of a lot of preconceptions that I've been instilled with. And doing so has been some of the best things I've done for myself and for others. It was done by talking to other people who are not like me. It was done by talking to other queers, and even people who were like me, and learning their side of things and their perspective. And I've made so many friends in this community, and I've listened to all of them. At least I definitely hope I've made them feel listened to at the very least. And I get that my relationship is, it's hard and difficult for a lot of reasons. Trust me, it's more difficult for me than it will ever be for you. Ever. The fact that I've been dating this girl for 8 months and I don't even get to hold her. That's harder for me than it is for you to accept that she's trans. The fact that I can't hold her hand is harder for me than you accepting me being a lesbian or understanding it or whatever. Like, me choosing a difficult path in life is not difficult because of our identities. Of course, a lot of people aren't going to understand or accept us, and that's just kind of something we're gonna have to deal with. We didn't choose that. We did not. We choose to pursue a relationship with each other because we like each other and fell in love with each other and want to be with each other and are doing everything COVID and government allowing to plan for a future together. But in my eyes, the hard part of my relationship is not I don't know what makes my relationship so hard for some of you people. I don't. I know some people are over the moon for me, but they have their reservations. Some people are happy for me because my girlfriend makes me so incredibly happy. Some people, it feels like they don't care at all. And maybe that's just from my perspective because I'm not being talked to about it from their side. I'd love for that to be an open discussion, but from the conversations I've had up until this point, I don't have a lot of hope. That's sad to say. I don't have a lot of hope for a lot of that, but regardless, like I said, the hardest part of my relationship, the hard path that we're choosing is just that the hardest part of it for me isn't that she's trans, isn't that we're gay, isn't whatever, it's that we're apart. The fact that we don't know what we're gonna do and that the way that things are in the world right now is making it even harder for that. But, you know, and I've been friends with her for longer than we've been dating. And we didn't stop being friends when we started dating. And she and my other friends have been talking to me and teaching me about LGBT concerns that were my own for a long time. She wouldn't have started dating me if me dating her was what made me okay with trans people. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. Like I've said before, I had reservations that were internalized issues that were none of her business. Well, I don't want to say none of her business, but they weren't her problem. None of it was her problem. But she was kind and sat down with me and talked to me about it, and, you know, like I said, with time it's gotten a lot easier. I've never misgendered her or my friends. I've never talked to her about her identity, how her identity isn't real. I don't take disrespect towards her. Attacks on her character are an attack on me, by extension. Disrespect towards someone I care about is disrespect to me. I've had people telling me that I'm not a real lesbian for dating a trans girl, which is sick. I've had people tell me that I'm dating a man, which is untrue because she's a woman. I only know her as a woman. I didn't even know her before she transitioned, which doesn't matter or impact anything, but So the thing is most LGBT people are more than willing and more than happy to talk and explain. We really are. We're happy to, for the most part, as long as it's coming from a place of genuine interest and wanting to learn and wanting to accept. And we start getting frustrated when nothing comes from it. When we're not being listened to, when we're being talked over and being represented and having assumptions made about us. And yeah, my girlfriend makes me incredibly happy, but her identity deserves to be respected regardless of that. Even if I didn't know her, her identity would be deserving of respect and acknowledgement. I would love for the people I care about to be a part of my life. I'd love for my family to be a part of my life. And the problem with that is that my life and my girlfriend's life are going to be very intertwined. Like I said earlier, I'm very one and done. This is somebody I've been dating for 8 months. I don't see us breaking up. I don't see us breaking up at all. We're not going to do anything anytime soon at all, but I see myself marrying this girl, which will indefinitely tie our futures together, which will tie our lives together. So, in order for my family to be involved with my life, they're gonna have to be involved with my partner. And whether it's a reluctance on that end or me wanting to protect the woman I love and care about, that's tough. That's a tough thing. I don't like thinking about that. I don't like all of that, but it's kind of inevitable with the way that things are. And I get a lot of people also telling me, oh, we're still both so young, which, yeah, we are in the grand scheme of things, but we're getting to mid-20s. That's not old at all by any means. I don't think I'm gonna be an old woman by the time I'm 30. I'm not somebody like that, but I also don't think... I think I'm past a certain point of being infantilized. I'm not a baby. I have proven myself, I think, more than capable to make my own decisions. My own judgments of character and otherwise. I'm a good judge of character. I'm smart. I have a very strong emotional intelligence. I think things through. I don't just rush ahead. And, I do my research. I do my homework. I deserve respect and acknowledgement. I don't want a pat on the back. Don't start thinking that's me being like, oh, look at me, I'm so great. But I know what I'm doing. Even though I don't. Even though I do. Even though I don't. I'm not going around trying to say I know everything, but when it comes to certain things, I just know. You just know sometimes. You just know things about yourself and what you want, about what you like, about what you need. This isn't a matter of me suddenly mastering a trade or anything. It's just me understanding people. I'm comfortable with myself. If anything, I'm more comfortable with myself and my identity and who I am as a person than I have in a long time. I think I'm very emotionally intelligent and caring of people. I'm comfortable. I'm more than comfortable in my relationship. Another person hasn't ever made me quite so happy in my life. This isn't a phase. I've been some form of gay for my entire life. This is not a phase. This is not gonna end in the next like couple years. This isn't something I'm getting out of my system. This isn't me dating a trans girl, isn't me being adventurous. Lesbianism includes trans women. Sexual identities and romantic identities includes people of the varying gender spectrum, because again, they are separate. I feel like I've been doing very well for myself, and you know, I have a hope for a future with a woman I love in a world that I didn't expect to still be in by now. And for that, I think that's the strongest or bravest thing about me, is that I wasn't planning to still be here. I wasn't planning to still be here by the time I even first met my girlfriend. But now we're talking about finding a home and being together and having a life together, getting a dog together, having her jokingly be the stepmother of my cats. Like, I never would have imagined that for myself. Because it's a future that I didn't think that I was going to be allowed to get. Allowed by who? I don't know, the society, myself, everybody, probably. I just would love support and warmth. I'd love understanding. I'd love respect. I keep using the word respect, but it's important, and I don't feel like it's used enough. Because respect isn't something that you earn. Respect is something that you lose. It's something that everybody should just have until it's lost. Usually if somebody acts in a way that is not quote-unquote respectful to you, it's because they've lost your respect. I don't know. At least that's how I see it. That's the way I treat respect. Is that if I don't respect somebody, it's usually because they've done or said things to me that I don't feel respected by. But regardless, I know it's a lot to wrap people's minds around all of a sudden. Like I said, I get that. They're not involved with the community like I am. I get that. I don't expect you guys to suddenly delve into the LGBT community, go to drag shows, go to Pride. If anything, I don't really have expectations. I don't have expectations at all. But I'm only human. I want to help and guide and teach and communicate, but I can't do that if nobody's willing to listen. And I can only do it to a certain extent, because I'm not some grandmaster of being gay. I also can't sit here forever with people who are unwilling to learn. I can't sit here and talk at a person who doesn't want to change. Not only is that a waste of their time, but it's a huge waste of my time and energy. Like I said, people are stuck on a time that's not here anymore. We're not in the past anymore. We're in the present, and we're just consistently moving into the future where things are changing, things are progressing, and if you're unwilling to learn and you're not willing to adapt, you're gonna get left behind. You're gonna get left behind, and it sucks for everybody involved, really. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't. Just kind of as a general as a general note, I don't want to talk about politics. I feel like this is important for me to say, though. At no point am I going to talk about sides or beliefs or anything. I'm not opening the door to that conversation, so please don't take that. If this is going to be the one thing you take away from this video, then you lost the plot. You lost the point. The point to this, you lost it. In, out, nothing. But I still want to make a point to say, that my existence is not political. I am not a statement. I'm a person. My relationship is not a statement. It is a relationship. Me dating my girlfriend is not me expressing a political view. Me declaring that LGBT plus people deserve representation and respect is not a political statement. That is a human rights statement. Gay rights are human rights. And end of discussion. Period. Done. That's it. That's not... No. These are not choices. These are not things that we decide to be. You can either... The decision that gay people make is you can either stay in the closet and ignore it and repress yourself, or you can embrace it and you can go be yourself. That is the choice. It is not a matter of choosing to be a certain way. It is a matter of embracing it or denying it. Politics are all choice. That is all decisions that you make. The way that you align yourself and the points that you agree with might not be a choice, but a lot of politics are actions, and they're not comparable. They're not comparable. I'm sick of my relationship being a constant point of political discussion, because it's not. My relationship is not an open forum. It is not a debate. It is not... Honestly, even half of the time, I know I've been talking a lot about LGBT issues, but when I want to talk about my girlfriend, or when I want to talk about one of my friends, and if I'm using like a pronoun or something, it's not a discussion. If you say the wrong pronoun or something and I correct you, that's not a discussion. That's not a discussion of political beliefs. It's really not. Or religious beliefs. It's really not a discussion, an open discussion of politics or religion. I refuse that. I'm so sick of that. I'm not... Notice how I'm not even talking about sides of anything or people in particular or anything. It's really... No. None of that matters. None of it matters. It does not matter. Screw politics. People are people. If your politics and your religion get in the way of people being people, that's a you problem. That is not an us problem. That is not even, it's not comfortable or good for you to want to argue that with us. That is not what any of them means. Pride is not a political statement. I mean, it can be when we want to fight for legislation, because a lot of legality doesn't protect us. A lot of legality doesn't include us or accept us. There's a lot of laws that allow people to... There's so many laws in other states that don't allow gay history to be taught, or LGBT stuff to even be mentioned in sex ed or health classes, or history books or anything. There's a lot of laws against us in workplaces and in business and medical stuff. There's a lot of laws around that. So yeah, when it gets political, it's because we want to fight for rights that are human rights. It's not a political statement of you versus me. That's not how that works. If you're not mad that people's rights are being suppressed just because they're not people who are like you, I don't know, that doesn't sound very American to me. That's not very constitutional. And that's not very accepting, I think. Like I said, I'm not a religious person. I'm really not, but you know, I hear a lot of arguments from religious people about myself and who I am, and how it's sinful and how I'm gonna go to hell. It's a huge reason why I don't go to church, because of so many people just not even telling me specifically to my face that I'm gonna go to hell, but for saying that gay people are gonna go to hell. and for encouraging people to think that way. And that we're people who we need to be saved from ourselves, that we need to be saved. That doesn't sound very holy to me. It doesn't sound very, I don't know. It doesn't sound very godly to me. It doesn't sound very, very loving. It doesn't sound like something that preaches love and acceptance. Because that's what it is. We really just are trying to preach love and acceptance, which should really be the same as you or anybody else. But like I said, I'm not a political statement. I'm not a statement against or for religion. I think having faith is a beautiful thing. I think having conviction is a wonderful thing. It's one thing when you let it affect you, but when it starts getting in the way of you respecting other people, and when it starts affecting the way that you treat other people, and you start conforming those people to how you think they should believe based on your own personal beliefs, that's when it becomes an issue. But I don't want to talk about that part anymore. I'm sick of politics. I'm sick of religion being so commonly discussed when it comes to these issues and concerns and just all around rights. Because I'm not a political statement. My love and who I choose to love, well, the truth I choose to pursue, and the people who I happen to love, and the person that I am in love with now, that is not a statement, that is love. That is care. And like I said, it's not a phase. I'm not going anywhere. As far as I'm aware, my girlfriend's not going anywhere, other than maybe here, or whatever, however that cookie crumbles. But, you know, let's say we do break up. I'm not going to date a man. I'm not going to marry a man and have 100 kids. I'm either going to date a girl who's cis like me. I'm either going to date a cis girl, or I'm going to date another trans girl. So you can either get used to it and get on board, or, you know, I don't know. I refuse to live up to society's expectations and desires of me and my relationships, because I'm not normal. This is my normal, but I'm not your normal. I don't fit into your mold. I don't fit into your puzzle pieces. It's hard being the only one in my family, really, who is the way that I am, that we know of right now. Who knows? Maybe me being out and open about who I am will let other people in my family, or just people who I know or talk to or meet, know that they can be who they are as well. Who knows? I don't know. Quite literally, that's not me pointing fingers at anybody. That's just legitimately me airing out thoughts I've had about my impact. But it doesn't change that I might not have a conventional relationship, but I have a fulfilling one. I don't have a conventional life or sense of identity, but I'm fulfilled. I've become more and more comfortable with myself. So yeah, I just encourage anybody who wants to be a part of my life to adapt. Like I said, the times are changing. It'd suck if you got left behind. It is my life. This thing that I'm talking about right now is me, and I'm affected by it. And I sure hope the people who care to be are a part of it and are around.